Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Yerhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, everyone. So today on the Infinite Abilities Podcast, we have Reid Miles, and he is a fellow podcaster who is doing a lot of good with helping people understand what it's like to live with all different sorts of disabilities and things like that, which is really awesome. So, Reid, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm living proof that you can do anything with autism and ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD early in my life, in my early teens, and we knew nothing about autism back then. And even before ADHD, all we knew was that I had a learning disability. So I went through the beginning, early years of my life with what was known as a learning disability. And later, when I went through counseling and therapy, it came out that I had ADHD. And then later in my life, in my 50s, I went through a clinical trial for an autism drug. And even before that, family members and even my own primary care doctors told my parents, Reid has traits of high functioning autism. And it wasn't truly confirmed until, like I mentioned, the clinical trial, which was for an autism drug for to help with communications. And it was right there when I got the actual official testing, and it came out that I was autistic. I was very much on the higher level, and that's it. And then as life went on, I started blogging, and then blogging turned into podcasting, and here I am today.
And you mentioned high functioning autism. Now, some of the listeners might not know that there's different levels. Can you
Mhm.
briefly explain the differences?
Sure. What back in the day, it was called high functioning autism. Now they're in levels 1, 2, and 3. Each level is corresponding to the how much support that person needs. Level 1 is like me. You need very little support. I'm able to live on my own and do everything with very minimal support. Level 2 is you need a little bit more support. You're still able to live on your own, but you need more support. In level 3, you need a lot of support and you're not able to do things on your own, but there are some who can.
Thank you very much for explaining that. And it's a lot like what I have. I have cerebral palsy, and there's five. I should be better at this. I think there's five different levels of that, and I'm at level 2. Like level 1 is it doesn't affect you a whole lot. You kind of can live, you know, average life. Let's say that. And then, like for me, I do have challenges. My hands don't work right. My legs, I walk a little different. I talk a little different, but I can still live on my own and do the things that I need to do to live. And then it just kind of, goes more in depth after that. So, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, now, do you have people in your community who kind of don't like certain terminologies? Like we have in the autism community, there are those who like frown on the word Asperger.
Okay. Uh, not that I know of. No, not anything specific with cerebral palsy. I don't really think there's anything that people don't like. I mean, at least I don't, but I'm I don't take offense too much. It takes a lot to offend me. I've heard it all. Everybody called me every name in the book, and you just gotta learn to that off because it's got
Hmm.
nothing to do with you. It's got everything to do with them. So
Yep.
shame on them.
I mean, that's one of the biggest things I've gotten into with a friend of mine who is really big into the autism community. When I first started out, we became friends, and I would go to him, and I still talk to him on off and on, and he's exactly like what you said, Nick. He's like, it's all them. It's not you. They don't know nothing about you. They can go, they can go f off, and because they don't know how you were, what you were diagnosed with back then, and they don't care. I mean, they weren't educated enough.
Yeah. And, like for me, I spent like 27 years of my life trying to basically be somebody that I wasn't. I would try to hide my disability all the time. And trust me, I don't know why I did that because you cannot hide this shit at all. Like, this is just who I am. Like, I can't hide it. I can't be, let's say, quote unquote, more normal. It's not going to happen. So for me, once I was able to accept my disability, which took, like I said, 27 years, and to be okay with who I was and love myself for who I am, that's when my whole life changed because I became more confident in myself. I was able to do a lot more with my life because I didn't give a crap what other people thought. That's what held me back all of these years is I was so worried about being judged and what other people would think of me that I wouldn't do anything. So, yeah, I said, "They can all F off."
I mean, there's a great quote by a YouTuber. She had said this early on when someone had asked her how she handles the negative comments in her comment section and she's like, the minute she stopped caring about what people think of her is the minute she started living her life. And that's what I
Exactly.
tell everybody now is, listen, you shouldn't care what others think of you. It's what you think of yourself.
Mhm.
And that's how you build your self-confidence is by not caring what others think, and because they don't know you, they don't know anything about you. It's all about you. It's that internal care that's worth more than anything else.
Yeah, and, like, people have no idea what it's like, and I have no idea what it's like to be them. So, don't judge people. Just love and accept everyone.
Hmm.
For me, one thing that I've learned in my life is, yes, I'm different. I have cerebral palsy. That's okay. But for me, I always tell people, give yourself a chance to get to know me before you judge me. Because you don't know me, you don't know what I'm like. Don't judge a book by its cover. You're gonna be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, people have no idea what we're like unless they get to know us, and there are those who refuse to get to know you because they don't care.
Yep, yep, exactly. All right, so I know you have an awesome podcast. You have over 200 episodes. Can you tell the audience what your podcast is called and what it's about?
My podcast is called Inside the Asperger Studios. It's basically, I give those who are neurodivergent, like you and me and anyone else who has a intellectual disability, a platform to be themselves. So if you're somebody who's afraid of judging or being judged by somebody, don't be. You can be yourself on my podcast. I don't care. You don't have to mask to pretend to be somebody you're not. You can be who you are.
I love that. I love that. And my podcast is like that too. Just hop on here, let's have a conversation, be yourself. And people love stories. They love
Mhm,
hearing real, authentic humans talking. And especially now in the world of AI, I think it's even more important for people to share their voice and their story. So I encourage everyone, like, I don't care who you are, get on a podcast. It's kind of therapeutic, I think. It
mhm.
really is. And I would suggest it to anyone.
It's fun. I mean, in the very beginning when I first started podcasting, and I'm sure, Nick, you can hear to this, you were wor I was worried no one would listen.
Yep.
And as a friend of mine who is another fellow podcaster says, you start off with a little bit of the imposter syndrome. You feel like, "Wh why would anyone wanna listen to me? I'm just a nobody." And then all of a sudden, you just one day just start to look at your numbers, and then you realize you got over several hundred people listening to your show and leaving comments here and there. And next thing you know, you're at over 30,000 downloads, and you're like, holy cow, my voice, my opinion matters. The people I have on my show matter.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I felt that at the beginning. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just like, "All right, let's just, basically F it up and figure it out." That's kind of the thing that I kinda go by sometimes. It's like, whether it works or it doesn't, I'm gonna learn, and I'll be able to improve next time. So, for me, starting the podcast, it was scary, and I'll I'll tell you, my first 50 to 100 episodes, they weren't that good because I was I had somebody tell me how I should run my show, how what questions I should ask, all of that. As soon as I decided just to have a conversation and not even really prepare, like, I really
Hmm.
don't prepare. I look at who my guest is, what they do, and that's about it. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather get on and be curious about my guest because then I'm gonna ask the questions that I wanna ask, and I bet those are the same questions that my audience has. So, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of funny you say that. I mean, that's how I do my show just about. And what's funny is in the podcast, I'm part of several different podcast groups on Facebook. And somebody asked, how long do you do your research for your guests? And I'm thinking, really? When a guest books, that's how much time you have before they come on the show.
Yeah.
I do very little research
Mhm.
because if a guest doesn't have any kind of website or any kind of info, I ask them, please give me information about yourself.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're coming on this show and I have no idea what to ask you. I have no idea what you're about or what you have.
Yeah.
And what I usually do now to save me time is if a guest has a website, I will take their information about themselves from their website, throw it through ChatGPT and say,
Mhm.
write me conversational questions and in podcast form and give them to me. And then I use those questions I, what I do is I use those questions as a roadmap
Exactly. Yep.
because a lot of times, as you don't know where to start.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes it's hard. Yep,
It is because you're sitting there and you don't know what to ask. I mean, my first question is always, "Tell me about yourself."
same here.
And even with that, it's still hard to go by what the person is, what they do, and the questions give me this roadmap. And what I will do is I will look at them and then I will tailor the questions. And a lot of times, that first question leads into a conversation,
Yeah,
and then that conversation just builds. And I'll just glance over at the questions. I'm like, have I asked these questions in any kind of way during this conversation? And a lot of times, the show just becomes nothing but a conversation between me and the guest, and it feels natural.
yeah. and that's
like
what
what
I
we're
like.
doing.
Yeah, it's just it feels natural, and there are certain times that I do get a few, questions ready, if it's a guest that has a business and that business, I don't know a whole lot about it, that can be very difficult. I've had to have that a few times, and I've messed up where I didn't prepare myself, and it was so hard to have that conversation because I was lost. So I like to make sure that if I need to research and get questions, I do. Otherwise, if it's people that look like you, it's like, okay, this morning I went to your website, I checked that out. I went to your show tools, I checked that out. I played a little bit of your podcast episodes, and I was like, all right, I got it. We can have a conversation. This is going to be easy. This guy's a professional, and I got excited.
Yeah. I mean, when it becomes a conversation, you're more relaxed, I feel, than asking questions. Because I remember in the very beginning, I was just asking questions, and it felt almost robotic. And the shows were shorter because it was ask a question, get an answer, ask a question, get an answer. There was no real back and forth, no conversation. And then and then you probably know, the more we get into it and the more you get comfortable, it becomes more conversational.
Yeah.
The and the guests feel more relaxed. I mean, I've had guests literally tell me talking to me was like talking to a friend because they're sitting there and it's not like, okay, tell me about this. Tell me about that. Tell me about this. No, it's like, hey, how you're doing? Okay. Tell me about a time you did this and this and that. Yeah. And then I kind of relate to it and then it becomes a conversation.
Yep. Exactly. And I'm sure you're like me. A lot of the guests that we get, this one might be their first or second podcast, so they're already
Yeah.
nervous.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in that spot. I mean, my first podcast was with a good friend, Gary Ryan, and I was sweating the whole time because I was so nervous. So I know what it's like to be on the other end. So I want to make it as comfortable for my guests as I can. So yeah, just have a conversation. And one more thing, you hear the term podcast interview. And I wish we could go away from that because let's just have a podcast conversation, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, one of the best tips I can give you, Nick, I mean, even though you've been doing this long enough, like me, is I tell my guests, hey, listen, pop on 10 minutes prior for a pre chat. And what that pre chat does is it loosens them up to the point where I go, as we're talking and we get to a point where I go, are you ready? And they go, yeah. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, okay. And I hit record and I welcome them. And sometimes I will go, okay, let's continue that conversation. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get back to the conversation. Because a lot of times, as you realize, there are things you talk about either after the show with the guest that you realize, oh my god, this would make great conversation. Why isn't this brought up?
Yep. Yep. There's been so many times where I get done recording with a guest, and then we start talking and having fun after we hit stop. And it's like, I should just hit record again. You know? Yep.
I mean, I had a guest I had on my show, and I was on his show, and he had told me he hits record the minute the guest comes on, or before even the guest comes on. And I'm like, why? I mean, he's like, this is because in case there's conversation prior and afterwards, I can edit that conversation and put it in as a leader or put it on as an outro or as something else because you never know what you're going to catch during and after.
That is a really good point, actually. Really good point. I might have to start doing that. Yep. So, Before we wrap this up, though, I think me and you could talk for hours, but I
Yeah.
like to keep this short and sweet. So, where can the audience go to find you?
They can find me either on YouTube under Asperger Studio. They can find me on any podcast platform under Inside the Asperger Studios. Um, Eventually, you can find me in bookstores. I'll have a book out called Fearless Footsteps Embracing the World One Step at a Time. But on any podcast platform, under YouTube, you can go to my blog under Asperger Studio and you'll learn more about me there.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And my slogan is Your abilities are infinite. What does that mean to you?
That means we can turn our disability into an ability. I mean, what um my vulnerability is being fearless. And I've never looked back. I mean, I'm one of the few people who are autistic who don't mask. I'm not afraid to be myself, to be awkward, to pretend to be somebody I'm not.
I love that. That's incredible. And it goes along with how I am. You, you've had a lot of guests on your podcast. And if you could share one message with my audience that you feel is the most important, what would that be?
That would be yourself. Don't try to be somebody you're not. The world is full of people trying to be to someone they're not. Be unique, be brave, step into the unknown because you never know what's out there because as the saying goes, your story doesn't start till you step outside your comfort zone.
That is so true. So true. I tell people all the time, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's where your life will change the most.
So true.
All right, Reid, this was really awesome. Thank you so much. And I have a feeling that you're going to be on my show again, and I still need to be on yours.
Yep.
So, all right, let's get that set up. All right. I, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next one. If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in the Nick Yerhart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember your abilities are infinite.